Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. It's a hunk of the week, Wednesday morning on the Smooth Breakfast. Yours truly is Ayokunmi Kikereko, right here with you to take you into the dailies, the headlines making the rounds all across Nigeria. This is Freshly Pressed on the Smooth Breakfast, and it's all about looking at the stories that are hot off the press, what has been going on, what are people talking about, what is making the news. And you can be a part of the show, as always, by sharing your thoughts on the stories with us on WhatsApp. The number is 0809 440 981. 0809 440 981. That is the WhatsApp number. You can also join us on YouTube where we're streaming live at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Just head into YouTube, search that out, and you can catch us on the live stream. And can you hear me, Lakunle Devoe?
Yes, we can hear you now.
All right, fantastic. I said welcome to the show this morning.
Right. Welcome. Good morning, Ayo. It's been like 5 years. Happy New Year's 5 times to you. Great to be on the show this morning.
Great to have you, Devoe. Welcome to the show. I hope your connection is behaving itself because, I mean, it was a few minutes ago. I hope it's behaving itself right now. Devoe, welcome. It looks like Devoe is having some technical issues there. But anyways, we'll get things started this morning regardless. Okay, I think Devoe, are you with us now?
Yes. Cool. Day 6 protests and bad governance. Morning, world. Morning, Lagos.
Oh my goodness, Devoe is such a character. Much great to have you on the show. All right, let's get things started. I'm going to start from the Premium Times, and Devoe, I am starting this story with you right now. And it's about the end bad governance protest that's been going on. The Nigerian government places sponsors on watch lists and frees their accounts. Let me just take a little excerpt from the story. The Nigerian government said it has identified Nigerians in the diaspora who are sponsoring the nationwide End Bad Governance protest. Now, the government said it has placed such individuals on a watch list and also frozen their Nigerian accounts. What do you think about this, Devoe? Is this something that the government should be chasing down, or is this just running around in circles?
Well, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. This is some level of response from government, especially after the security service chiefs that included the military, the NCDC, the police, as well as Customs and Immigration met in Abuja, reviewing the updates on this nationwide protest and the fallout. As you know, there has been a lot of security breaches nationwide. And one of the issues that came up was, several issues came up from government putting their finger as the the immigration comptroller head, Ms. Kemi Nanda, did say that they have some sponsors on their watch list and that they'll be arresting them when they enter the country. But some way, somehow, they didn't announce who those sponsors were. And what this does is it almost makes it look like government is not being completely serious about their reactions to this, because most of the statements we've been hearing from the security team, one regards the flying of Russian flags in some of the northern states like Kano and Kaduna, catching the tailor who produced it. And you really wonder, why is government not making a direct connection between the political undertone in most of the anti-protesters, who are literally the ones causing the mayhem and the violence across Nigeria? And somehow what we can see is that in some of these states, it's clear, especially where the looting is taking place in Kano and Kaduna, Gombe, even at Buhari's house in Daura and Kastina, that there is a clear distinction between genuine protesters who are after bad governance and some of the, in some states, it's hoodlums. In some states, they're political machineries that we always see during elections, thugs, and then some level of homeless children, especially the Almajiri in the north, who are being employed and used. Even here in Lagos, when some were put up at the mic to speak about what they came for, they initially started talking about how they were hungry before they were cautioned of saying the wrong thing. In the north, some of them who have been attempted to be spoken to can't even defend themselves. Neither do they. All they tell you is that, well, a bus came, picked us up, and they told us to come and do XYZ. We have to stop this, and I expect the security forces to be able to speak to the political undertone going on in several locations. We can't continue hiding our faces like ostriches in this country. I mean, Russia is fighting, is involved in a war right now. Do you really believe that they're trying to destabilize Nigeria at this point in time? Why are we flying a kite? I mean, come on. This is all about the cost of living crisis in the nation. And all of a sudden, the media is awash with things that never, ever were part of the Nigerian narrative. We can't continue selling this narrative. I expect the security forces to get to work. Because long in the day, about in the past administration, that's how, when a lot of attention was being drawn on banditry, kidnapping, and insurgency. And what the government was saying at that time was, oh, it wasn't Nigerians. It was people, old soldiers that were coming in from Libya, pushing the guns into this. Until some governors eventually started owning up and taking responsibility because that they knew the insurgents, they knew the bandits, etc. We have to stop this. The longer the protests last, the challenges on the economic stability and growth of this nation. Remember, investors, both local and foreign, are getting a bad impression. Now, this is not to say that we're the only country that is protesting or the only country that has this challenge. But the truth is, come on, I think sometimes we need to show seriousness. And the part that gets me angry is the fact that Nigeria had already been facing a heightened insecurity for a long time now. It's literally what has caused a high cost in inflation for food, which is why many people can't afford food. Why didn't we see this, what do you call it, this collaborative efforts by the military, by the police? Why didn't we see this concerted efforts? Sometimes it almost looks as if the security forces are only here to protect the government, as against the citizens who pay the tax for how they are paid. There's something wrong that needs to be addressed. You just cannot always be bringing out security to hold back law-abiding, unarmed citizens, and the real criminals in the nation. You can't do much about. There's just something wrong about that. So I'm hoping the security forces will get their acts right and begin. Remember, the DSS told us that they had intelligence on the sponsors. Why haven't we heard the names of these people? Why is this still being kept quiet? I thought they wanted us to help them and fish out some of these people. Thank you.
Right. Thank you for that, Devoe. I mean, Nigeria to a degree has this culture of not naming and shaming. If you take your mind back to the issue of the sponsors of terrorism and all that, till this day, no names have actually, been mentioned, as was said. But anyways, let's continue on Freshly Pressed this morning. Lakunle, let's take a look at the story coming out of the Tribune. And it's talking about the federal government planning 1.4 million jobs with cotton sector revival. Now, the federal government has commenced moves to resuscitate the Nigerian cotton industry in collaboration with the International Cotton Advisory Committee. How good a move is this?
You see, it is pleasing news, actually, to hear this. I remember growing up, one of the things that made me used to look forward to going to Kano was the fact that between Kaduna and Kano, I can't remember the exact place, on the right side of the road, on that road then, before it became an express, you will see the fields, the cotton buds and all that growing as far as your eyes could see. You see those white spots and you are asking yourself, and then a little bit of it, once it's windy, you see it blow across the sky, you want to stop and catch some of them. That was how much we were producing cotton. Kaduna, Kano, Kaduna town, Zaria, that axis had a lot of textile factories. Fun fact, the past governor of Edo State was the Secretary General of the National Union of Textile Workers many years before it became NLC president before he went on to join politics and became a governor. So it tells you how much power, how much could happen in that industry. It is so pleasing to hear that we are thinking about it. But now the but. We hear all this, we will, we intend to, we want to. We've had it for 9 years now, maybe for 14 years now. Everything was we will, we will, we will. We've barely seen any of it materialize. I hope that this time, like a minister of the current administration said on air, that this government is being, in his adult life, had been the most deliberate about everything that they want to do to solve people's problem. In fairness to this particular minister, though, every plan his ministry has, he puts it on the public space for people to engage with, to give feedback. Right. He's probably the only one who has done that to date. I would also imagine that the minister for agriculture or the minister for whatever, and minister for trade, the minister for industry, would also join hands with in this project and put up a plan there for people to engage, specialists, the farmers, the plan to train people, the plan to grow the cotton, the plan to have the equipment, and so on and so forth. Even in this Lagos, sometime not in the distant past, along Oshodi-Apa Expressway, there's a place, there are maybe 2 or 3 textile mills. If you look at the number of Ankara we wear in Nigeria every weekend alone, there should not be a reason we should not have a thriving textile manufacturing industry in this country.
Right.
If the countries that are leaders in this thing, they invested time. Go to Bangladesh. You talk of China. You talk of Vietnam. You talk of India. What they've exported in terms of textile. China exports about $303 billion of textiles annually.
That's
Vietnam,
a lot of money.
as small as it is, exports about 48 billion. India does about 41 billion. You know, so when you hear these numbers, are we as a country not challenged to also be a part of these $1 billion in exports? So that is enough reason for us to want to make sure that this works. I hope that it is not just one of those promises of we will. I hope we will have the will, the political will, and the challenge to take it up. It saves the number of money. Guess what? We want to buy textiles in Nigeria today. We go to Switzerland. Switzerland is not even in the top 10. Even Switzerland is in the top 20 of people who import textiles. So Switzerland import textiles to their country. We go there to import to our own. So
that is saying something.
So that tells us something. So we need to be deliberate about this one. If you take 1.4 million of the 25 million unemployed Nigerian youths, it is a start, and then we can begin to grow it across other industry.
Right. Thank you so much for that, Lakunle. I mean, it's very important. You know, we will, we shall, we have to. We definitely have to do that, and of course, take things to the next level. I want to take a quick breather right here, but when we come back in, we'll take a story out of the Guardian. Devoe, I'll come back to you on this one. We'll be talking about the Humanitarian Affairs Ministry. Interesting times in that particular ministry. All that and so much more on Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. We'll be back in a bit. Woo!
Devoe, why did you switch off your lights?
You said?
You switched off your lights.
Light? What? You can't see me. There's light here now.
Somehow dark, your face.
No, it's because it's because light is behind him.
Okay, because the light is behind you. Okay,
yeah,
now it's better now.
Okay.
But you are not. The camera is not standing upright.
It's not standing upright.
Now, yes, now.
Okay, yeah, okay, it's better now. It was landscape. It was landscape.
It was landscape.
Welcome back to Freshly Pressed on the Smooth Breakfast on Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. It's a hump of the week, Wednesday morning. Ayokunmi Kikirek right here with you. Alongside me are my analysts for the morning, Devoe and Lakunle, taking a look at the headlines making the rounds in the dailies across Nigeria. Join us on the conversation by sending your messages in to us on WhatsApp. The number is 0809 440 981. 0809 440 981. All right, let's get back into the groove. Welcome back, gentlemen. Devoe, like I said earlier, we're going to take a story out of the Guardian where President Bola Tinubu has approved the appointment of 7 persons to head strategic agencies and programs under the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management, and Social Development. Like, it's interesting because this is the same ministry where we had so much controversy, with Better Edu was suspended earlier in the year and so on and so forth. Now we're having new heads being appointed under this particular ministry. What does that bode for Nigerians going forward?
Yes, this is a story of particular importance because the Ministry of Humanitarian Disaster and Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management and also Social Management has been under review. Let's put it that way, because apart from the suspension of the minister, which the EFCC or the Ministry of Finance, which it was seconded to review the operations of that ministry pending when the EFCC will be done with its work, has not come back with a concise outcome as to whether there was any actual indictment or issues, leakages to be plugged. Remember, the old minister, Sadia Farouk Umar, is also under indictment as to she was invited by the EFCC to explain the expenditure of almost 0.7 trillion naira within the last administration. Hence, however, despite all these challenges that ministry is having, that ministry at this point in time, especially as Nigerians are going through the cost of living crisis, is literally one of the most important in terms of getting temporary relief to Nigerians at every location. Hence, right. Whilst that review is taking place, I think what the presidency has done is to reappoint a new level of directors for the various units or subsidiaries under that ministry. And 7 people were appointed. Most of them from this article, we realized that they were former, former staff of the Lagos state government, and then some other locations. Now, what you have is Dr. Badamasi Lawal. He's been appointed as the chief executive of the National Social Investment Program Agency. You know, that agency also has been dogged by a lot of controversy, especially with the expenditure of about 45 billion by the last secretary. We also have Mrs. Fumilola Olotu. She is now the program manager of the National Social Safety Net Coordinating Office. Those were the people who were distributing the conditional cash transfer to Nigerians, which the last time, I think they played a game by showing us a few people that they were counting 20,000 naira and handing over to them, of which the National Assembly took up the presidency by saying they don't know who and where that money was being distributed at. I think the Ministry of Finance said that the delay came this time because they were trying to create some kind of identification through both the BVN and create some kind of trace via the banks. We're yet to see that come to being, maybe with these new appointments. You also have, Miss Aishat Alabukundu. She's the program manager for the grants for the vulnerable groups. Those are also people who get some level of conditional cash transfer and palliative, especially where the IDPs, there are almost over 20 ID camps scattered over all around Nigeria. You also have Princess Aderemi Adebowale. She is now the program manager of the homegrown school feeding program. Remember, in the last administration, the VP was championing this project, whereby to reduce the out of school children counts. I think it's somewhere around 20 million Nigerian children out of school. They were providing lunch, basic lunch to all students for free around Nigeria in public schools, which was supposed to create a buffer and attract out of school children back to school, and also beef up nutrition. You also have, I think, well, there are more, but they haven't stated them. But the truth is, based on these appointments, we expect them to get to work immediately, because as you can see, Nigerians, the major debacle with the hunger protest is hunger and anger. A lot of Nigerians can't eat. Those who used to eat 3 times a day eat once a day now. Those who used to eat once a day, they have to wait 2 or 3 days before they eat. This is the real state of affairs. And let's be frank with ourselves. The 1% of the 1%, or those of us who can afford 2 meals a day, only make up 5% of Nigeria. So you have literally over 150 million Nigerians struggling to feed properly. And this has to always get to the ears of government so that they understand it's not just about living on handouts, but we have to find ways of empowering Nigerians back again so that they can sustain themselves. That is what is key here.
Right. That's the very important thing. Thank you for that, Devoe. Let's take some messages from WhatsApp real quick. This is Tony from Ikeda, who says, the Nigerian government can identify the sponsors of a protest within 24 hours, but can't identify the cause of the protest. What a nation. Dakbo from Ashati Kotoko says, it's only our frontline leaders. If only our frontline leaders did the right thing, the question of people sponsoring the protest would be a non-existent fallacy and an unnecessary motivation. Ever since Nigeria gained independence, we have been regarded as a toothless puppy in the Sahel region due to the fact that we're more concerned about the stomach infrastructure and illegally embezzling public funds. Shegun says, the story of our textile industry mirrors the story of Nigeria. Car assembly plants, tire manufacturers, health, refineries, and education infrastructure. The rot has been on for 3 decades, and in this time, our population has exploded. Time for serious reform is now, and reform takes time and will not be easy. All right, let's get back into the stories. Lakunle, I am coming back to you right now on this one. And let's take the story coming out of the Punch newspaper. It's about the import duty waiver on rice and others. And the federal government says it will begin next week. Now, the guidelines for the suspension of customs duty and taxes on imported food items are to commence next week, the federal government announced yesterday. Now, if you remember, in July, the federal government had approved a 150-day duty-free window to allow the importation of maize, husked brown rice, and wheat as part of measures to combat rising food inflation across the country. And it seems like that particular plan is in the offing. They say from next week. Lakunle, I mean, this is supposed to be a short-term thing, just to, should I say, pad the current hunger and all that. But long-term, how sustainable is it?
Okay, so for me, this story appears to confirm one of my fears about governance in Nigeria, not just this government and previous governments and the ones before and the ones before. Almost all the time that I've been conscious of what they call governance and government, most of the time, our reactions or our actions are always knee-jerk. Okay, so for 8 years, our borders were closed by a sitting president, or rather at the authorization of a sitting president, and several arguments for and against the closure, valid, invalid, advantageous, disadvantageous, both sides had points, right? And so, like people say, you cannot do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. We have seen where that ended. We have seen that it wasn't giving us the result we wanted. Okay, so we now say, people now say, okay, so this food inflation then kicked in. And we know that one of the ways we could solve this problem was to open the border and to let things come in, and also to have these waivers. So thinking of it, where was the plan to make the guidelines to make this happen on an almost an immediate basis? Now, the announcement for this 150-day window was made, I think, end of June or early July. This is August.
July, yeah.
So this is 30 days after. we're still thinking about when the guidelines will come out. There is no urgency to this thing. And the food inflation we're talking about, don't forget, the first story is the one of the arguments for the protest that took over the country last week was food inflation. The people in poultry farming, every day you hear them complain about the cost of maize. I think maize used to be 70,000 naira per ton. Now it's about 850,000 naira per ton. I have a friend
available.
So the urgency to get these things going is the problem. It is not that it is not a good idea to open the borders. Two, so after the 150 days window, what happens? Are we going to wait for the 150 days to expire before we make the plan and the guidelines as to what will happen after? These are the things that people speak to. It seems that, like one of the responses said, that if we are taking care of business, we won't be looking for sponsors of protest. We need to be more intentional about taking care of our business. This time, I would not even place so much blame on the politician, right? I'll put so much blame on the civil servants, who are the engine that make the politician, who can make a success or failure of the politician. The politicians have their own anyway, but where are those things? Don't we have them? I don't want to believe that there are no thinking people in governments, in the ministries that are responsible for these things. So after 150 days, what happens? We wait, or what is the plan? What we are going to import in those 150 days, for how long is it going to sustain the Nigerian 200 million people? Those are the questions that we need to worry about. That we have opened the borders, we are waiving taxes on all these things, good for a short-term basis, no problems, it's okay, welcome development. But then after, what happens?
After what happens? Is it going to be just living on vibes, or are they going to put things in place that need to be put in place? These are the questions. Let's round up with a couple of messages that actually come in. This is Abolide from Ikotum, says the analysis on the textile industries by Lakunle was top-notch, and the Devoe Lakunle combination is unbeatable. Thanks for making my morning first. That's Yinka Abolide from Ikotum. Thank you for your message. This is coming from Emeka. It says, this government is not serious. The names of Boko Haram key players released to our Nigerian government 2 years ago now. What have they done? What have they done? Nothing. But to freeze accounts of those championing good cause for citizens, it's a shame. Joseph says, Joseph Mayer says, Nigerian government, again, they put sponsors of the protest on watch list and even block their bank accounts. Please, what about the terrorist list given to the Nigerian government by the UAE till this moment? What has happened? Hypocrisy of the highest level. Also, imagine the harassment of journalists and persons being interviewed right in the full glare of the Nigerian police. What happened? Absolutely nothing happened. But it was the reverse shooting. If it was the reverse shooting, the shooting would have led to anarchy. May God bless Nigeria. I hope I made sense of that one. Dan says, good morning, crew. The unprecedented collaboration of Nigerian security apparatus in tackling this end bad governance protest should also be channeled towards confronting our security challenges. That's Pastor Dan. Thank you for that, Pastor Dan. And you can squeeze one more in. Yinka says, with the importation of food duty free, the government must be deliberate. What do I mean? Let's ask the questions. What food do we import exactly? Rice should top the list, followed by, let's say, maize and so on. Certainly not Gary. And conflicts don't drive food inflation up, because in the first place, it's out of reach of the hungry protesters. The target is to create rice glut in the system. Excess supply drives down demand and price. Also, we need to intensify local capacity of rice as well. Thank you so much for your messages. And thank you, Devoe and Lakunle, for joining me this morning. It's amazing how the time just flies by when we're having such great conversations. Always a pleasure having you on Freshly Pressed.
Ayo, thank you for having me. Probably will drop by later in the day.
All righty. Thank you so much, Devoe.
Ciao.
All right, then. Thank you all for your messages. Freshly Pressed will come your way tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. on the Smooth Breakfast on Smooth 98.1. Meanwhile, stick around, because it's going to be time to get into the locker room at 8:15. Tega is in for that one. Don't go anywhere.
Devoe, enjoy your jungle.
Not so.
Enjoy your